Hello. Hi. That was a creepy hi, wasn't it? Hello. Hope everybody's safe. I did something today and I decided to stream it because though it's relatively trivial, I think it's pretty powerful thing to know. And also I wanted to play with OBS a little bit today as a little break from my grind on Monday and show you what I did. So what I did was I took two toy boxes. One of them was InterSystem's Iris with all the interoperabilities, the HL7s, the X12, the interchange documents, the FIRE stuff, the CCDAs, the BPM, the business management, all that. And then the AWS's, who's right now having a month-long webinar of reInvent. And all the serverless stuff that is really cool to work with and super inexpensive to build super awesome things. So I took both of those toy boxes, built another toy box, and dumped them all in to the same thing. And basically at the root of this is just being able to play with the native Iris Python API through AWS Lambda. So you can seamlessly see it kind of, those two interoperate. The example I have here is executing methods on your Iris cluster, your Iris toaster, your Iris container via the CLI. But I digress, and I'll kind of show you really quick. And I won't take a lot of your time because I'm starving too. So anyway, okay. So there's some use cases that I ran into, and if you're building an app in a serverless app in that's based on Iris out there on AWS, you don't have to build for long to realize that you need to reach into those Iris instances or that cluster to either get something, put something, set something, or restart something, or whatever you need to do on that in instance. And previous, I was doing a lot of stuff with SSM, so I'd basically execute a shell command through SSM. It worked cool. It just didn't seem like it was anything worth sharing with your friends, that kind of thing. But I did find some killer use cases that it started that way, but then kind of ended up this way with the Python native API. First of all, like if you're doing anything with Smart on Fire, you'll soon get to a part where you need to manipulate the JWT token. And if you're using AWS Cognito in particular, you need to hit one of the triggers. One of the ones you want to hit is the pre-token generation. Now in that method, you do want to reach out to Iris, possibly do an intelligent lookup to return the patient ID so you can, or the FIRE ID or whatever resource ID, so you can map the identity ID that's coming in to the one that's in Iris so that when you pass the context, it launches under the correct patient in that marriage. Second thing I've hit is that in the clouds, we resize Iris stuff all the time, whether it's running on an instance or a node group or whatever. But just increasing the footprint on the infrastructure does not tune it. So a way to do that is to programmatically resize and calibrate, redo your CPF settings, things like that. So that's another use case. Another use case is just looks damn cool in demos when you're flying through the AWS CLI and you just happen to spit back some Iris information. That's pretty cool. The third use case here for this stream here is like not too big a deal, but it'd be kind of great if this were wrapped up in a pip. So this video, almost 75% of it shows how to build the function for use in AWS Lambda that is typically taken care of with a pip install in other cases. So yeah, here we go. In all cases, it doesn't matter, but you definitely need a cluster running somewhere in a reachable super server of Iris in order to make this work. So it needs to be, from a networking standpoint, running in a VPC across a couple of subnets, and you need to have the super server accessible in that VPC. I don't care if you're running Iris on a Kubernetes cluster or a container or a damn toaster. It doesn't matter. I'm running it on a 3-wide mirror set on EC2. Again, it doesn't matter. Just the security group needs to be listening for 1972, and it needs to be situated in the VPC across 2 subnets and accessible for the Lambda function. Because when we build a Lambda function, we're going to glue it to that VPC so that from a networking standpoint, it can reach those nodes, that container, that node group, whatever's. So just a quick note on the situation that has to be set up before you even continue to play with this thing. So I am here going to show you what it takes to kind of build the Lambda function so that it can be, put into AWS and used. Since we can't use pip, we have to pre-build it. And all this really means is that they're building a folder structure. A particular folder structure, we're putting things in it, we're wrapping things up by convention, and then we're uploading those to S3. So here we created a directory. Again, not amazing, but just pay attention and hear me out to the different things we do inside this root directory. So once we're rooted in here, we need to go out and get the wheel file. The wheel file is actually the module that's wrapped up. This particular one, I go out to, I think, one of the Learning Services GitHub repositories, and I grab that, put that into the root of the directory, as you can see it here, and then we unzip it because it's nothing but a zip file. Once it's unzipped, we probably ditch the wheel file at this point. We really don't need it. Before we wrap it all up, I don't think I did for this demo, you can see that those are Linux-based shared libraries. And now we have a function that doesn't do anything, but it's definitely capable of connecting to Iris. So the two things that make it cool are coming next. We have a configuration file that is just an example of a tertiary file that's used. We have the connection.config file. We also have the actual function itself, the index.py. You can see the config file. This was also in the quick start. I added it here just for kind of showing an example of different ways to derive some configuration information. Here is this. Now what we do is we zip it all up, and now we have this Iris native Lambda function .zip. So that is basically our packaged Lambda function that we need to upload to AWS. So everything in AWS that's cool starts in a bucket. So we're going to go ahead and put this out on a bucket, and then we're going to reference it in our Lambda function. As you can see, it's on our way. And that brings us to our next little tour. So this is a less than beautiful tour of the AWS console. I chose to do it this way because you just kind of see things in lights. You can deploy that zip file any way you want. You can provision it in a CloudFormation template just as easy as you can by building it and pointing and clicking it to death in the console. You can do it through Terraform if you can stand going from version to version with that product. But I'm just saying this is an example of us walking through it, in particular to the code involved in building it. So let's take a quick look at it. At the top here, we've got our module imports. We got some of them that are installed from pip, which are JSON time, and our OS one to grab the variables. But the one on top is our Iris native one that we included inside of the function ourselves. Okay, so that's less than amazing. Then we have the connection.config, which you remember from before. It has our connectivity information on how to reach the cluster. This is going to one of the mirror nodes. And then we have the actual function itself. I'm going to stop it a little bit here so it goes a little bit fast. But the next 15-20 lines here are doing the same thing. But what I'm doing right now is getting the connection detail, which is the IP port, namespace, and a pair of secrets. Once I get those, we can enumerate those from the config file that you see the next 5 block, or you can grab them from the environment that is also stamped in the function as well, so you can reach it from somewhere else like CloudFormation. Next, we create the connection, which is pretty great, and that actually connects us. And then we build our object. Once we have that object, this is where the native Python API gives us, I think, 4 methods is in there. I'm not quite sure I remember. 2 of them were of interest to me. One of them is in use now with this and pretty much predominantly used. So that, one of them was just to get method value, and the other one was get method void. I didn't see the point in the void. I always wanted to return something, even if I didn't get anything back, so I kind of ditched that idea. But here is where we now have our Iris native object, and we can execute one of those methods. So there's 3 things you need to pass to this thing, and this is important to look at. With this library, tell me the class, tell me the method, and tell me any arguments you want to throw at it, and I'll return something. I've decided to do this in a structured way. I've also decided to put 11 billion methods in one class because I'm the one who has to manage them, and instead of littering them all over the place. But I definitely could have had a dynamic class name in there, a dynamic method, and I did find a way to be really dynamic in whether or not the arguments were there or not. So that's what I did did secondarily. But I got the class name, I hard-coded it. This class is not resident in our Iris cluster yet. We're going to put it there. This is our event object. This is the object that gets passed into the function. You'll pass this in through the CLI. You pass it in through Boto3. This is the thing that it's expecting to work. It's expecting you to tell it what version it is, right? If you don't have any arguments, it's expecting the word none. If it doesn't have none, it's just taking a list of different arguments here. Now, you're going to look at this and go, why did I have to use this class? Why do I have to build a class of my own? If you read the documentation, it kind of makes sense to me because I use wrapper classes anyway for a lot of things. It does tell you that it's a good idea to use a helper class and wrap things up. I think that's due to the fact that like a lot of the methods return things by reference and stuff, and that's not supported by the native Python API. So that's why we're using kind of a wrapper class. And where are we going? Okay. Yes, this is where rubber hits the road. If we have some arguments, run class method value with those two particular overloads, and then if it doesn't and it has arguments, we're going to go ahead and pass those in as arguments to the method. This works, it gives us a way to, be very, by convention, we're being very, we can use this as kind of a pass-through as long as we follow certain rules. So that's all that's really going on in its entirety, and our return value is whoops, sorry. Is this working? Yeah, there it is. Okay. Yeah, and the rest of it here is the connection, is a get connection info. Again, I left that there just because it was in the learning thing, and it's a way to do that. A better way to get some of those secrets is to probably integrate with AWS Secrets Manager. But I'm showing you two ways to do it now. Grab it from a file, grab it for the environment, or you can even hard code it if you really wanted to. Basically, all of those things could be hard coded if you are really going by convention. But there they are as environment variables. Here's our VPC and a pair of subnets. Our Iris cluster runs on 3 subnets, one for the arbiter and the mirror. Here's our security group that's got our good old trusty 1972. We ditched that 51773 nonsense. So here's the rest of it. So that kind of wraps up the entire API. So that's that. Let's go ahead, check here real quick where we're at. Okay, so we have built it. We've built our function. We put it up there, and we've established it in AWS. And we referenced the class that wasn't on our instance yet. I just want to show you what that class looks like with a very simple method, and we're going to import that, and then we're going to give it a shot. So the third step here is to import this this helper class and kind of take a look at it and explain to you what's going on. So here it is. There's the class name that we had hard-coded in the Lambda function. Here's our method version. First we set our status to something less than ideal, which is terrible. We set it to a 0. Then we do something, and then we check to see if something we did returns something halfway decent. If it does, we return a status code of OK. And then what I've decided to do is for every return on these, I've decided to get a status code back, and then the return of whatever I'm trying to do, whether that's I'm returning a string, whether I'm returning, the output of a certain do command, whatever. I'm returning those two things as a JSON object, so I can use them in Python as a dictionary, and again, be by convention without a whole lot of, duct tape. So that pretty much is the class. Now, if we go over, we right-click on this guy, and let me get out of the way, and then we import that guy. We've imported it. We want to go over and check to make sure that it made it. So we'll go into our cluster. There's the demo package. Where is it? Iris over there. And then operations, it made it. Yeah! All right, cool. So what's next? So what's next is, let me see what's next. Boop. Okay. Now, this is a less than dramatic slide here, but it is showing here. I make use a lot of AWS Cli Aliases, and what those are is basically a way to put in a subcommand to the AWS command that does things that you do repetitively or by convention. This one here is I'm just going to let this loop. At our top level there is saying, who am I? What that's doing is I do AWS who am I. This tells me who I am, what account I'm on, etc. And allows me to just get an idea of where I'm at. The one I'd set up for this demo is AWS Iris. And what that does is it accepts an argument of what type of method I want to run. And for all intents and purposes for this demo, we're running AWS. It's pointing to our function, taking our argument, right? It's got a bunch of other nonsense and some funny games we're playing with the output. But if we run this, we get AWS version Iris, or Iris version. It should spit back exactly what we provisioned in the Lambda function. So not too exciting. Pretty cool if you know what you're looking at. Otherwise, that should wrap things up, I think. What do I got here? That was... Yeah, so I'm dunsies. I'm starving. If you want to argue about this, yeah, definitely reach out. I'm going to put the GitHub somewhere. May put it out on community or whatever, but it won't happen right now. But yeah, I got to do something today that I thought was important. I also got to play with OBS. And hope you're all safe. I'm 5,000.